Hey there, I'm Emily from Grad Student Finances, and this video is a follow-up to a post I wrote last week called The Best Kind of Frugality for a Busy Grad Student. And what I suggest in that post is when you're looking for areas of your spending to reduce, targeting your large fixed expenses. And so this video is about what is most likely your largest fixed expense, housing. Housing is an awesome expense to try to reduce when you're looking to cut back because it is such a large fixed expense. It's a large expense, so even a small percentage reduction in your housing costs can translate to a lot of additional cash flow every month. And it's fixed. Once you make the effort to reduce your rent that one time, it pays off for at least a year, if not several years. But it is very difficult to reduce your housing expenses. You have to change your entire living situation. You have to evaluate what's out there. You have to search for a new place, apply for it, possibly get a new roommate, actually pack up all your stuff, do the moving. There's costs associated with that, both time and monetary. And in general, people are just resistant to change. It's much easier to stay where you are. But the benefits, in my opinion, often outweigh the costs. So I would really encourage you to at least reevaluate your housing spending, if not, try to reduce it. There are 5 aspects of your housing for you to consider when you're trying to reduce your expenses. Number 1, with whom you live. It is a luxury to live alone during graduate school. So if you're looking to reduce your spending and you don't currently have a roommate, absolutely my number 1 suggestion is to get a roommate. Probably move and get a roommate. In fact, your housing spending probably reduces with every extra person you add to your living situation. So if you don't have a roommate, look into getting one. If you already have one, maybe you can live with a few people. If you're really resistant to the idea of getting a roommate, and I've met a lot of people who are, at least price out how much you're paying for that luxury of living alone. How much would it cost you if you had a roommate? How much does it cost you currently to not have it? Just look at that number, look at the difference between the two, and make sure that you really believe it's worth it. If you live with your spouse or a significant other, maybe consider downsizing to a studio or a 1-bedroom apartment and put into effect that old phrase, 2 can live as cheaply as 1. And even if you live with your spouse or significant other, you might still have another roommate. Definitely evaluate your relationship though to see if it can handle the small space and the extra people. Number 2, location. Is it feasible for you to live in a different community, a different neighborhood, a different area of your city? You're probably more familiar with the city that you live in now than when you made your last housing decision, especially if that was the first one after you moved to your city. And even if your new place costs just as much as your old place, is there a way to reduce some of your variable expenses, such as in transportation? Maybe you can live closer to campus, so your drive is shorter, or you can move to a place that has better public transit. Number 3, type of housing. As I mentioned earlier, probably the more communal the housing type, the cheaper it's going to be. So a studio or 1-bedroom apartment is going to cost more than an apartment with a couple bedrooms, which will probably cost more than a townhouse, which will probably cost more than a single-family home. Also, try to figure out what's cheaper in your city. A large community owned by a corporation or a private home owned by an individual. This is another area in which to consider your variable expenses, such as your electricity, gas, water, parking. Does one type of housing offer, in general, lower utility costs than another type? Number 4, square footage and amenities. Most likely, moving to a smaller place is going to reduce your housing and your utilities costs. And consider the amenities that your current situation provides, maybe access to common areas like a pool or a cookout area or a gym. Are you using those amenities to their fullest? Could you possibly live without them? Your university probably supplies a lot of similar benefits. Number 5, on versus off-campus housing. Now, different universities handle this differently. If your university actually subsidizes on-campus housing, then absolutely do what you can to get into that situation, even if it only lasts for a couple years. In other cases, on-campus housing is rather expensive for the quality. And so if you do live on campus, but housing is cheaper off campus, certainly move out as soon as you can. Quick note of caution, there are some expenses associated with moving, and so you have to make sure that the reduction in rent that you're getting is not offset by whatever you pay to do the actual moving itself. Hopefully, you can pay off the expenses of moving with your rent reduction in only a few months. I had really positive experiences associated with moving during graduate school. I lived in 4 different places in my 6 years in grad school, and the last 2 moves that I did, we actually reduced our rent for each one of them. My husband, who was also a grad student at the same university, actually lived in the first apartment that he chose upon moving to his grad school city for 5 years. And in the 5 years that he lived in that apartment, our city changed a lot. And so the choice that he made for the location of where to live was not, the only choice available to us 5 years later. We were able to find a less expensive place that was much closer to campus, so that really helped us on our transportation costs. We also changed from living in a large apartment complex to living in a townhouse complex in a townhouse owned by an individual. We maintained the same square footage during this move, but we gave up a lot of amenities, which was totally fine with us. That move resulted in a $110 per month reduction in our rent over what we had been paying the previous year. So that was amazing to help us accomplish our financial goals during the following year. So if you're looking to reduce your spending and you haven't reevaluated your housing in the last year or two, I definitely recommend that you do it. If nothing else, you'll find that you're really happy paying what you are where you are currently, but it's better to know. Okay, that's it for our topic of how to reduce your housing expenses. Tune in over the next couple weeks because we're going to have discussions on transportation and food.